So likewise, oh, there you go. Oh, wow, we almost forgot to record. All right. So when you communicate with people, everyone communicates a little bit differently. I mean, some people, they don't want to speak up because they feel like they're going to be interrupting you, or they're just more typers than they are talkers. And then there's people that are the opposite. I'm more of a talker than a typer. So when we're going through this, if a question comes up, please ask it as it comes up for you. If there's a scenario, so I'm going to be talking about situations where perhaps it's one-on-one. So you're just talking to one person online versus talking one to many. So maybe you're presenting to your team, presenting to, your professors and faculty and such at BCIT, or maybe you end up going into teaching or coaching and doing workshops. We're going to talk about the one-to-many dynamic as well. So because of that, communicate how you want. You can type into the chat box and say, I have a question, or you can write out your full question. You can unmute yourself. Whatever works for you, you're not going to throw me off. I strongly, though, recommend that you grab a pen and paper. I know everybody who delivers a keynote says, make sure you take notes, but really, this is not about you copying anything that's on the screen. What this is to set the bar low for myself. This is not going to be revolutionary. Okay, what this is going to be a conversation about how we need to change the way that we communicate, depending on if we're communicating through something like Zoom, the same way that we had to communicate differently when all of a sudden we learned that we have emails to access and text messages. This probably doesn't apply to some of you, but when I was growing up, I didn't send my first email until BCIT. Actually, no, it was technically Douglas College, because I did that for a year and then I went to BCIT. That was when I sent my first email. So there was a lot of transition that had to happen. For you, you learned that, oh, when somebody text messages me and they're like, they reply back to me and they're like, okay, period, okay, AY, like those could all mean so many different things. And when text messaging first came out, it was like, wait a minute, are they being curt with me? Are they being annoyed? Are they being smart? Are they like just being relaxed? We really read in to how someone replied to us via text. When I sent my first, well, not my first email, when I sent my first email to a superior, when I got my first job at 1-800-GOT-JUNK after BCIT, I actually tried to be sarcastic through email. So keep in mind, email was still somewhat new back then. We didn't have emojis. There's no such thing as that. We hadn't even really figured out the semicolon smiley face situation to make it a winky. And so I tried to be sarcastic, to which I got a reply from my boss saying, that was inappropriate. Please don't, reply like that again. And it was because when you try to be sarcastic through an email without a winky face, you kind of come off as just a bit of a jerk. So I had to physically run to the office and be like, I'm so sorry, I was trying to be funny. And I'm just like this young 20 whatever year old and, don't know better, trying to, make my mark. So we have to pivot now that we are talking digitally, just like this. What's interesting though, is this is a little bit deceptive, because for many of us, when we talk to people on Zoom, or for even you, maybe it's FaceTime or something like that. Oh, and we've got someone who zipping and zapping with your zippers. So make sure you check your mutes. We're not going to be kind of monitoring that. So see, this happens in a regular meeting, and you've got to make sure that you don't take it as a personal attack. It's just, hey, our mutes go off and on, right? We have to pivot in this online communication situation. And the reason being is, see, now I've gotten all thrown off. We have to pivot because when we communicate like this, it seems deceptive, because when we talk in person, I can see you, I can hear you. So why can't I communicate the exact same way when I can see you and hear you on Zoom? And the reality is we all live in a little box. And what is in this box is highly deceptive, and it's not true. For many of you in the room, I can't even see your little box because you've got a black screen on. So I have no idea what's going on in the background. And all of that combined means we need to figure out how this medium needs to be treated in order for us to not accidentally do things that either really irritates other people, makes them feel like you're being disruptive, makes them feel like you don't care, when in actual fact, you feel like you're giving it your all and you're trying to build that relationship with them. So let's talk about what these goals are that I want to cover with you here today. So the first thing is I want to help you with building trust in teams faster, but not just building trust for your sake, building trust with them feeling trustful of you. Has to be a two-way street. The second is increasing engagement and participation. So this can sometimes be daunting if you're the one presenting. For all I know right now, all of you are like, yeah, this sounds good. You're going, yeah, totally. You could be going, this sucks. What am I here for? I'm going to start, doing something else in the background. I have no idea, right? Because I can't hear any of you. And that can be really daunting talking to an audience that's muted. So how can you increase engagement, participation, and as well feel like there is increased engagement and participation? But probably the biggest thing that I really want to help with here is, and you know what? Zoom's doing some sort of odd update here. Oh, interesting. Meeting controls. My meeting controls change. I guess Zoom did an update. There's another fun thing. Zoom's going to keep updating their technology, so you're going to have to keep pivoting. But the biggest thing that I want to help you with is something called Zoom fatigue. Now, whether you use Hangouts, meetings, FaceTime even, whatever the medium is you use, they tend to call it Zoom fatigue. When all of a sudden the pandemic happened, there was no graceful lead in to all of a sudden having to communicate this way. It happened overnight and it was mandatory. Back in my day when emails came out, I was able to hug my fax machine and my pager. We barely had flip phones that we could text message on. We could do a gradual transition. This was like, no. You went from being able to go to coffee with somebody, being able to show up to your classroom, work on projects in the library, to nothing. You're stuck in your house. You must communicate this way. And we didn't give it enough time to pivot. And all of a sudden we felt this exhaustion wave over us. And we assumed it was because of the blue screen. Oh, my eyes are tired. I can't stare at the screen anymore. It's Zoom fatigue. Well, blue screen is definitely a real thing. Highly recommend getting yourself some blue blocker glasses. Definitely helpful. But what it actually was, because I don't know about you, but yes, I would work on my computer all day. But then what do you do when you want to take a break from work? I go and play on my phone. Or I put my feet up and I watch Netflix, or I go to the grocery store and there's even screens in the grocery stores. Like there's blue screens everywhere. So it wasn't the blue screen that was really tiring us. What it was is all of a sudden, I went from being able to see you in person. I could see your full body language. I could hear you. I could understand and feel this kind of connection, for better or worse. I could tell if you were angry. I could tell if you were happy. I could tell if you were listening to me, right? To all of a sudden right now where I'm going, half the room, are you there? Hello. Half of you are in the kitchen. Maybe you took a bathroom break. Maybe you're working really hard on a paper that's due. Maybe you're paying so much attention. You're taking so many notes. I have no idea. And so we're in this constant state of overanalysis. So to give you an example, if I was working with my team in person, I would ask Rebecca, she's my go-to, and I'd be like, Rebecca, hey, can you work on this for me? And she'd be like, yes, Leah, I can. Let me ask some questions. I'm nodding my head. I'm telling you yes. And then let me physically walk over to my desk and I can see that Rebecca is working, right? On your teams, you're going, oh, awesome. Yeah. Jose's pulling his weight. Justin, thank you so much, man, for showing up. I can see that you're working hard. He's in the library. I can see it through the window. All of a sudden, I'm going, Justin, I can't see your hands right now, man. Are you typing? What are you doing over there? I'm going to pick on everyone in this meeting, by the way, or this keynote here. So I would be overexhausting myself trying to figure out, is Justin just watching YouTube or is he actually paying attention right now? And it's that over-analysis that was absolutely devastating our energy levels, because we were in a constant state of feeling judged, a constant state of judging, and a constant state of just uncertainty. So that is going to be the biggest goal that I want to go over with you here today and hopefully accomplish. And believe it or not, I'm going to give you some tips that if you execute on them right away, it's actually going to significantly reduce that Zoom fatigue pretty much overnight. So let's jump in to some bonus tips first. So I like to go over this because I don't know how many presentations you've had to do. Maybe you're leading your team. Maybe you're having to present to your class through Zoom. But it was already really stressful when you had to do that in person. Now you're having to do it online, but you're also having to be a full one-man production crew. You have lighting, you have audio, you have visual that you need to pay attention to. You need the software to work, the hardware to work. You need the internet to work. And that's just on your end. If you have, how many participants do we have here? Over 50 participants. I have all of your hardware, your software, your microphones to worry about too. What if your internet connection is really slow? what if I have neighbors above me? They have a Roomba. Do you know what a Roomba is? Yeah, they sound really cool until you live under one. It sounds like I have marbles rolling across my floor about 4 times a day because this vacuum cleaner is just constantly going over their hardwood floors. So you have all these things that you all of a sudden can't control. If you allow these things to affect what you're trying to deliver too much, it's going to do a couple things right off the bat to not only make your life harder, but it's actually going to break that trust connection right away with people. So if I get really angry and I'm like, oh, Zoom, oh, everybody, I need you to hang on, I need to fix this. I'm going to have to wait 5 minutes. Well, first of all, I'm giving this impression that I am demanding perfection and I'm annoyed that it's not perfect. That makes people in your audience or on your team feel like, oh, you know what, if Ming is really wanting perfection, geez, she's not going to like me. I'm going to have to be on my toes around her because, you know, who knows how I'm going to be getting judged because look at how angry she gets if I drop the ball. So that's how your audience feels if you get too up in arms about things falling apart. But also at this point, we've all had to be on both sides of Zoom, presenting on Zoom and listening on Zoom or being presented to. We can empathize with it. So just remember, you have more scapegoats today than ever before. You can blame everything on Zoom, just like today. I'm really annoyed with the Zoom update. I'm going to figure that thing out so I can make sure my menu stays on the screen at all times. But things like that are going to keep happening. So give yourself a bit of a breather, a bit of a break, and just know that when you can roll with those kinds of glitches, if you will, you're actually more relatable because you really take the pressure off your audience for them to have to perform. It's going to make them feel more comfortable asking you questions. So on that note, I see that Marwan is like, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Totally. Can you hear me? Is it muted? I think we've got a delay. Yeah, all of those coined phrases for sure. New life we live in. All right, so let's jump in to what is building trust. Now, this is a thing that I'm going to say for like hundreds of years has just been growing within our brains and socially has become accepted as the natural. Oh, make sure you check your mutes, everybody. Let's see, I think it's Red Ross, we got you. You're going to need to get muted. So I'm not going to be controlling anyone's mutes. Remember, we will hear everything that is happening in your background, no matter how embarrassing it is. So these natural tests of trust, these are just things where if I go and buy a car, I'm on a used car lot and I'm like, hey, looking to buy a car, and the salesman comes up to me and the person just will not look me in the eyes. Their hands are behind their back, they're shifting, they're pivoting, maybe they're getting some armpit stains underneath their shirt. All these things are making me go, this person's way too nervous selling me this car. I do not trust them as far as I can throw them. You're not going to buy the car, right? If you meet someone for the first time, there's this weird unsettling thing when people have their hands behind their back and you never see their hands. Like, what are you hiding? What's going on over there? Oh, Jaspreet, we got you. There you go. And so these are all things that we'll go through the list. Eye contact is obviously a big one. And of course, there are different neurodiverse people who perhaps eye contact is not as significant. For others, it's very significant. Handshakes. Right? Back in the day, it was like, hey, I don't have a gun or a sword in my hand. Now it's like, is it a limp handshake or a strong handshake? I'm going to judge you accordingly. Verbal communication. We talked about the, yeah, totally. Those are just affirming to the person that you're paying attention to them. Their energy levels. Are they fidgeting? If I would meet someone for coffee and their leg was bouncing up and down, the whole Starbucks table would start vibrating because they're so nervous with their knee bouncing up and down. Posture. If someone's feeling insecure, uncertain, their shoulders might roll, they might feel uncomfortable, have their arms across their chest, their skin tone and eyes, maybe their skin is a little bit pale, they look a little sickly and they're sweating. Are you feeling okay? We can't do any of that. I mean, gosh, I love Zoom because I have like a perfect complexion every single time I present. I mean, you gotta love the webcam kind of crummy version of what comes through, right? But that actually can really be tough to help us empathize and understand our team's energy that we're really trying to connect with. So no longer do any of these things apply. So let's jump in to now how we should overcome this. And actually, one thing that I just want to to interject, just to share with you, I guess why you should listen to me. You don't, you really don't. You don't have to listen to me, but I will share with you why I am kind of able to communicate some of these things that we've been able to discover, because I've been developing these kinds of skills since long before COVID. I mentioned how when I graduated BCIT, I started working at a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. That was the company back in my day that every single person wanted to work for because the culture was so cool. I was in charge of selling franchises all across North America. When I was, gosh, I would have been like 23, 24, something like that, and I graduated, I'm having to talk to people who are like 45 years old, they've got 2 kids and a picket fence, and they live in Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm talking to them, trying to tell them over the phone. There was no such thing as Zoom. We couldn't even hardly take pictures on our flip phones back then. So we had no Zoom. I had to, on my fun little headset, convince this person in about a 3 to 4 week time frame that they should quit their job, give us a couple $100,000, start their own business, and maybe even have to move their kids to another location. That was a significant feat. And that was just one example of how I had to build this trust with this person. And I couldn't rely on the visual cues on whether they trusted me. I had to develop these other spidey senses. Now COVID hit, and obviously that kind of threw a lot of people all over the place. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I loved it myself. I love not having to drive into Vancouver every day for like a 30-minute coffee meeting. That is definitely never, ever going to happen again. But for me, all of a sudden, we went from teaching our kids. So if you think keeping adults really entertained is difficult, imagine like 10-year-olds where they have every freaking distraction possible in their room. I'm having to keep them engaged. I'm having to get them to want to learn. I have to connect with them and build a trust with them in a way I've never been able to do it before. So we had to boot camp a whole lot of hours under our belt, and we had to figure out, how do we do this? And then document it in a way that we could teach all of our other teachers how to do it as well. So that's where all of this information is coming from. And I really just want to strongly reiterate that this is not going away. When things go back to normal, we're still going to be communicating like this, and more than we would have if COVID hadn't occurred, because a lot of people love this now. A lot of companies are hiring remotely. Your next job may be in a completely different company or country than where you live. That's a big, big possibility these days. And that's kind of exciting. It means, sky's the limit for you, but it means that in order to be the person that they choose for those roles, you need to learn how to communicate like this. And then once in those roles, if you're in a sales role, if you need to build community, if you want to do customer service, you're going to be talking to people all over the world potentially. And these are skills that are going to absolutely help you with that. But like with me in my day, I had to learn how to send code words through my pager and then learn about text messaging and then emails and now Zoom. We're going to, as soon as we start nailing this, we're going to have to learn to talk through like holograms or whatever is next. So know that this has got to be a constant audit, to take it upon yourself, to audit yourself and figure out, is this new method of communication, can I continue to use the old tools that I used to use? Are they going to be effective, or is something not working anymore? All right, so let's jump in to the first thing that we need to start overcoming this. So when you are talking, especially one-on-one, okay, when you're talking one-on-one especially, but this is also important in a group setting. If you are the host, if it is up to you to get this group or this individual to trust you for whatever reason, you must make a critical choice in the beginning here until we rewire your brain. You have to make a critical choice. Are you going to prioritize your need to build trust, your need to feel comfortable, or are you going to prioritize your audience's need to trust you, your audience's need to feel comfortable? The reason you have to make that choice is because our brains aren't rewired yet. And to give you a perfect example, eye contact is impossible to do two-way through Zoom. So what I'm going to do, and I see that actually, Wafa, thank you for putting it in there, because it's right at this point that I recommend that everybody puts this frame of Zoom into speaker view. So if you go to the top right-hand part of your screen and you click on view and you go to speaker view, you'll get a whole lot of me and not a whole lot of anybody else. I just want to demonstrate this, a couple of the tools that we're going to go through here today. So eye contact, completely impossible at this stage to do two-way eye contact. So if I was maybe meeting with, and apologies if I butcher anyone's name, Arshdeep, all right, okay. So you are kind of square in the middle of my screen. So I'm meeting with you, I'm trying to build connection with you, and I'm like, why aren't you looking at me? Why are you looking? And I'm like trying to build this connection, and I'm going, where are you looking right now? Meanwhile, Arshdeep is going, where are you looking right now? You're like, and it's because I'm not looking into the camera. If you're talking to a group, here's what a group looks like. I'm looking at Diana, I'm looking at Ming, I'm looking at Dan, Mohammed. If my arms were up, I'd actually look like I'm surfing the web, right? You do not look like you're paying attention. Now, if I look into my camera, this one thing is going to be probably the most significant tip that I can give you. And I'm going to give you a whole bunch of reasons throughout this presentation on why. But when I look into my camera, whether I'm looking at one person or many people, especially good with 10-year-olds, because as soon as you turn your back and they think you're not looking, they like, whoo. And so if I look in my camera, all of a sudden I'm looking at 30 different people's eyes at the same time, or at least they feel like I am. But here's the other thing that it's helped me to do. I am now not worried about anything else that's happening on my screen. Now I'm solely focused on just delivering content to you, staying engaged with you, and being able to remain in flow. As opposed to me going, what's Sherry doing right now? Sherry's totally judging me right now. She didn't even show up, did she? She just turned this on and she left, right? Oh my gosh. What, Ian, you're playing games right now. I know you are, man. You're not, I knew it, right? And I'm constantly overanalyzing. If someone's camera goes on and off, I'm like, wait a minute, where did they go? Somebody gets up, I'm like, they left. No, they're getting coffee. They literally just went barely out of view, but I am all just up in my head, getting hugely exhausted. And everything that I'm seeing is a complete lie, right? I'll never know what's actually happening in your space. And to be honest, even if I did, what am I going to do about it? Except give probably a really crummy presentation because I'm completely being thrown off. So by looking into your camera, you're going to alleviate a lot of Zoom fatigue. They're going to be able to feel more connected, but that choice is so imperative because I am placing your need to build trust with me over my need to feel like I know everything that's happening in your worlds right now. And remember, I am getting a peek into some of your homes right now, right? Some people just may not be comfortable with that. So feel welcome to go back to gallery mode if you like. I'm going to give you just a quick tip on some things that you can do to retrain your brain. Because if you've ever held a baby before or what have you, if you hold it, they love looking at your face. And to be honest, as we grow older, we never stop loving looking at faces. So when I'm on here right now, I see faces. And so my eye is wanting to check everybody out. But you know what it's really wanting to do? Check me out, how I look. What are they seeing? Am I coming across the way that I want to come across? We're looking at ourselves constantly, right? So we need to give ourselves a new focal point. If you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, if you have a celebrity crush, if you have a pet, whatever it is, picture yourself if you like. Find one of those or just make yourself a Post-it note with a smiley face. You're going to put that up right behind your webcam. Now you have that constant reminder and a face that hopefully you enjoy looking at that you can now start making eye contact with. Okay, so that's the first really big tip that I want to convey over there. And I'm just going to take a moment to just look in the chat here and see if there's any questions that I need to address. So just a reminder, if you do have any questions, especially if they're scenario based, if you're like, hey, this happened, what would I do in the scenario? Please feel welcome to bring those specifics up. Oh yeah, my t-shirt. Be curious, not judgmental. Yes, it's actually a reminder for myself too, because if you find that you judge yourself or that you judge others, it's because you're also judging yourself or judging others. So it's a good reminder. It's hard when we grow up in such a judgmentally type society. All right, perfect. Oh, and awesome. Arshdeep, you used the smiley face trick in your last interview. Good. Interviews. So glad you brought that up actually, because this is going to be that thing where when an employer is hiring and they go, I don't know what it is. I just, Jaspreet just really nailed it. I don't even know what it was. Like her resume is really like the same as everybody else's, but like really got a good feeling. It's because they feel like you were listening, you were seeing them, and you were paying attention, right? This is really, really going to help set you apart from the rest. Awesome. Oh, and thanks. Yes, my background. Love it. well, we can talk about backgrounds too, because I know virtual backgrounds is definitely something that people always ask questions about. All right, let's jump into what's next. Craving peer validation. Some of you may disagree, but for the most part, many of us want to know, especially when we're putting ourselves out there, that others are receiving us, they're hearing us, and they're accepting us. And we want that validation. And now that Zoom has happened, many of us are starting to lose our confidence, to overthink what we thought we were really good at. We're now questioning if we're as good as we once were. Really big example is actually teachers. Teachers used to be able to control the classroom and be like, pay attention, put your phones down, stop looking at your crotch like you're text messaging, right? They could control the room a little bit easier. You could feel the heat of their eyes when they're looking over you. All of a sudden you go on Zoom and what do they see? This whole lot of black screens. And they're like, is anybody there? And it just like completely crushed a lot of teachers' self-esteem. And they had to really assess, am I as good of a teacher as I thought I was? Or was it just that I could command a room when I had control of a room and people's physical presences? So the plague of the black screen is very real. Again, when you look at your camera, how many black screens are in the room becomes like a moot point. It's just something that you just don't even notice anymore. But I'm going to say this kind of projecting, well, not even in the future. So if you become a manager, certainly this is something that'll be key. But even in your teams, when I was in school, you always judged the other team members going, are they pulling their weight? Am I doing all of the work, right? And so sometimes when you have team meetings and you show up and two of the screens are black, you have a choice. You can be like, hey, Cassie, put your screen on, man. Come on, show up. Caleb, what? What'd you even come here for, man? Like, and meanwhile, Cassie and Caleb could be actually the hardest working people. In fact, it could be that Cassie is on their back-to-back classes, hasn't even had a pee break. In fact, it's a black screen because they've had to take the laptop into the bathroom just to have a pee. And Caleb, he hasn't showered for 6 days, man. Just going crazy, working so hard, right? You have no idea. Yet you could be penalizing these people simply because they don't feel comfortable. It could be that, people are on mute because they've got a dog barking. It could be that, frankly, they're just like, look at this is one where it's just a listening thing. So I am going to fold laundry. I am going to get my sweat on and do some squats. Whatever it is, it doesn't mean that they're not showing up. Meanwhile, we are taking this hugely personally, like nobody's paying attention. Nobody is here. Nobody is doing their share of the work. So we're going to talk about how even though some of you have windows, right? I can see a window into your house, which again, remember, this is a huge invasion, right? It's not like you would meet with your BCIT crew and be like, hey, come to my house and like, check it out. I haven't done laundry and, kitchen looks disgusting and my bathroom, hopefully it's clean. Like that just wouldn't happen. Yet people are now getting a window into their home. So we're going to talk about how even the windows that I can see right now, I have no idea what's actually happening and how deceptive that is. So look into your webcams. It's definitely going to be a huge, huge advantage for you, but don't take anything personally because you just really don't know what's happening on the other side. Now let's talk about new spidey senses that we need to develop. So if we can't use visual cues, how can we gauge if people are actually showing up, if they are pulling their weight and doing their work? Well, because they're doing their work. So when I was selling franchises, there was a sales funnel process. And I would be able to gauge if this person was paying attention. Now, of course, on the phone, I did have the advantage of getting the uh-huhs. Yes, I understand. And we could have some dialogue here. You don't always get that because everybody's on mute. But I would be able to understand based on how they reply, what their voice is saying. It's kind of like they say, when you go blind partway through life, all the rest of your senses become heightened, right? All of a sudden you can hear differently and feel differently. Well, that's going to happen here too. And that's why it's only in the beginning you need to make the choice. Are you going to prioritize their comfort or yours? Once you rewire your brain to start feeding off of all of this other information that's out there, you're not going to have to make that choice. You're going to feel comfortable as well. So you're going to have voice cues, their tone, their volume, how quickly do they reply? But the biggest thing is, are they doing their work, right? If they're not doing their work, now you got a problem. But if they are, then who cares what their camera is? Who cares if they're on mute? Who cares about all those things, right? So that's definitely something there. Now I want to show you a technical thing. especially good if you are going to be doing interviews or any kind of one-on-one stuff. So here's a technical thing with Zoom. If I were to meet one-on-one, it's me and Josh, we're going to hang out, and I want to, one-on-one, I'd like to build more rapport. So maybe, Josh has like a cat that bounces in the background, or maybe he's a dog person. Maybe he's got a cool painting on the wall or a big bookshelf. Being able to be like, hey, I love that painting. Where did you get that from? Those kinds of things can be helpful, right? So in Zoom, if it was just one-on-one, what Zoom does, if I expanded my window full frame, it puts the windows side by side. But if I shrink my Zoom window, it'll actually stack your participant at the top of the screen. So what that means now is, this is my buddy Corey. And so if we were meeting, he is now placed on most laptops right underneath my web camera. Now, if any of you know Seinfeld, there's an episode about the close talker. I'm totally dating myself. And so you don't want to be a close talker in this situation though, because here's the difference. And actually I will put myself on full screen if you have it there. If I was, so who's Miriam, you're right in the middle of my screen. So if I was looking at you and I was like, hey, how's it going? Right. And I'm like trying to make eye contact. I'm really close up with my camera. You're like, where are you looking? Like, this is just kind of creepy. In fact, where I'm looking is almost where someone's chest would be, right? It's like, dude, look up, like what's happening here? But if I can cheat myself and I look in the same spot and I put myself further back, all of a sudden my eye contact is going to have a bit of that cheat zone, right? So be aware of where you're placing yourself in the camera, because the closer you are, the more they're going to be able to speculate on what's happening with your hands, your body, and things that maybe you don't want them to know, such as your eyes kind of bouncing all over the place. That's just a little technical thing. All right, let's jump back. And actually, maybe I'll just stop right here. Is there any, oh, there's a question there. If there's any questions, please feel welcome to type those in, and I'll just pause right here. I'll answer some of these questions. All right, so how to stack it. So you don't actually have to do anything except right now, your Zoom, if it's a full size, right? If this was only 2 people in the room, Zoom would put your windows side by side. So if you shrink your Zoom window, right, and you make it narrow, then it doesn't have room to put the windows side by side. It stacks them. And Zoom just likes to stack them so that your guest is on the top, which is great, until they do another update and they screw that up. Does that make sense to hear? And if there's any other questions, let me know. Cool, awesome. All right, let's bounce back here. So, this is always fun. I always do it, and I always forget that it's up next, but reducing screen share time. So you will notice that through this, I have been bouncing back and forth between screen sharing and not screen sharing. And the reason being is a couple reasons. For one, keeps me more engaged. It's something to do with my hands. You need to fidget on something, fidget on your screen sharing. You've probably been told when you are making slideshows, it should be very minimal of what's even on there, right? So people just don't need to see your bullet points on your screen. And in fact, if you're bouncing back and forth, it's going to help them to pay attention. Oh, they're on, the next one, they're on the next one. But here was why it's good. If we're all honest, many of you have zoned out at some point on this presentation. Now, it could be because I said something that just completely blew your mind and it took you off in a memory that, just, it could also be that maybe you're just not into this right now. Maybe you've got something else on your mind that's really heavy. When you're screen sharing, bouncing back and forth, it's a disruption. It's something where people go, wait a minute, something significant just happened. What's going on my screen? Same thing with perhaps the people who are folding laundry or doing squats right now. And all of a sudden they see the screen go from this really black to a lighter screen or whatever the color is. And they're going, wait a minute, what's happening here? It helps them to just check in and go, something significant has changed. And then they can go back to their laundry or their squats, right? So it's going to help your audience stay engaged and give that visual significant change to go, oh, maybe I should pay attention. Much better than you just going from slide to slide where there's hardly any difference. It's really not going to be anything that gets anyone's attention in any real way. All right. So on that note, let's go to the next slide. This is probably my favorite one. So their perception is your reality. And I love this one because this is where it really is going to demonstrate the difference or the lack of difference between those of you who have your video camera on and those who don't. Because what's happening in your window is a lie. It's all a lie. Let me switch screens here. Now, I always have to preface this that I'm going to show you an example to really hit this point home, or one of many of these points home. But the person in this screen is someone local. And she is a great example for this because she's one of the hardest workers ever. She was doing an incredible program that was available to a lot of entrepreneurs across Canada for an awesome initiative where she would get to interview some really awesome CEOs. Now, during these interviews, however, in year one of doing this, it's since changed and she does it a little differently. This is how she appeared. So I call this the talking head syndrome. We don't want to be a talking head. Now, this was an especially devastating comparison because this person over here is actually in public relations. And in public relations, you do a lot of interviews, with exception to her not looking into the web camera. You can just get a sense that I trust this person more. Why? I can see their hands, right? I can see more of their torso. When you're a talking head, here's what's interesting. She could also have her hands under her chin. She could have a beautiful collared shirt on, right? But I'm looking at her going, man, did you even show up for this? Are you wearing pajamas under there? You look like you're slouching. Sit up. Come on, what's happening? And it's really only because of how the camera is sitting. So this is the talking head syndrome. Don't be the talking head. And then distractions. All right, so let me jump out of this. So talking head and distractions. We always need to remember that, a point that I should probably make right now, and I usually try to make it multiple times, is I'm teaching you a lot of things that is really just self-awareness, right? That's why I'm like, grab a pen and paper, not because you're taking notes of what's on my screen, but just those like aha moments of like, oh, that's what I used to meet with, asthma. I used to meet with you all the time and I felt so disconnected. Now I get it, right? It's like all of a sudden we can empathize with some situations that have maybe gone down. We're like, oh, maybe I was doing that too. Maybe they were reacting off of energy that they felt I was giving and it was, all a lie. So things like talking heads is definitely one where they're going to judge you right away if you have your video on. So you're right away showing up going, my video's on. Look it, I'm like, this is going to really impress them. Meanwhile, they're like, what's up? Like, what are you doing? I'm feeling actually uncomfortable because I can't see your hands. Are you on your phone? Are you on your browser? Are you typing? What is happening here? It's uncomfortable. But then there's the audio one. And this is more so when you're talking one-on-one because, or if you're the presenter to a group, because you're not on mute as often. Now, if you're like me, you start a meeting, you take your phone and you put it down right next to your computer. But what you've done is you just placed your phone right next to your microphone on your computer. And so maybe it's on vibrate. Maybe you forgot it's not on vibrate. But all of a sudden somebody text messages you and it sounds like this beautiful little diddle-ding. And you're like, oh, sorry. Oh, let me turn that off for you. Meanwhile, the people on the other side, it sounds like the walls are caving in, especially if they're wearing headphones. Like Ian, careful. Is kind of like what's coming through and they're like busting their eardrums and you've got Slack notifications, calendar notifications, and you're like, oh, sorry. And it's like, yeah, no, what you're coming across as now is even though they understand, they just feel like, you know what, Brianna, that's it. You're so disruptive. I just can't handle it. I have this negative heart palpitating feeling every time I stare at you. And it's because your phone keeps going off right in the microphone and I'm wearing headphones. And you don't want to give that impression. So make sure that you don't just put it on vibrate, but I actually have my phone elevated in the air now. If you have a mouse pad, put it on a mouse pad. Hell, throw it in the other room if it's an interview. You just don't need your phone around you, but turn off your calendar notifications because it's so disruptive. Marwan, yeah, you have to take off your headphones. It's that jarring. I used to be on a board and I would wear my headphones. That's when I got my Yeti detached mic because I was like, I can't do it anymore. I can't wear the headphones. Like too often someone's cell phone was going off. It was just absolutely piercing. All right. So this is awesome. If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. For all I know, all of you have no legs. For all I know, all of you are wearing your underwear. For all I know, there's just way too much that could be going on underneath your screens right now. I just don't know. I don't know what you're doing with your hands. I don't know what you could be typing, you could be surfing on the web, you could be watching a YouTube video. I just don't know. And it's because these boxes are just boxes of little lies. So if you can, go back to that top right-hand corner, click on view, go to speaker view for a minute if you're not still there. And I just want to show you a demonstration here. So let me grab something here. Now, if we were meeting in person, maybe I'm your career counselor, and we've sat down and I'm like, this is fantastic. Let's see, who haven't I picked on yet? Allie, it's good to see you. All right, Allie, tell me about you. And I started taking notes. And Allie is going, wow, Leah just cares. I know she's focused. She can't possibly be doing anything else. She's taking notes. She's paying such good attention to me. And I'm going, yeah, Allie, I care. I'm taking notes because I am focusing on this one conversation. But here's what's interesting. I'm actually going to switch my webcam over to my standard webcam. And let me just switch this over here just to really demonstrate how a lot of times this can look. So this is how it looks when I'm taking notes on Zoom. Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Looks like I'm text messaging right now. Like you can't see my hands. And they're like, and so here's the thing, Allie's going, nah, Leah used to always take notes. She's probably taking notes. But maybe something happened to her dog. Maybe she's just really busy. Maybe she's just not into this anymore. Maybe she doesn't like me anymore. I've now put her in like a complete whirl of speculation and over-analysis, and now they're exhausted. Now they're associating you with exhaustion, and you've created that seed of doubt in their mind. What we're trying to do here is eliminate seeds of doubt of people feeling like you don't care. Another thing that often happens to me is somebody will say something and I'm like, oh my God, I got to give you a website link. And so they're talking and I'm like, typing in my computer, looking for links. And they're going, what the heck just happened there? Are you like literally replying to an email right now? Meanwhile, it's because they've inspired me so much. I just need to share something with them. Another fun thing is I sometimes in the beginning, especially would forget and I'd be like, oh, I got to grab something for them. But I can still hear them. But meanwhile, they're like, what is going on over there? And it's just because I'm like, I got to show you this book that I got. It's an amazing book. I got to show you. And I'm still listening though. But to them, I'm like this terrible human being. You can switch your views now if you like. I'm going to switch back to my other camera. So if it's not in frame, it doesn't exist. Another culprit is the thumbs up. I'm still giving it to you. Do you know that? I'm like, this is awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. The clapping. This is so great. Yeah. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist. So once again, another reason not to look at your cameras, not to assume that they're doing something that is or isn't supposed to be offensive to you. You know, at least in an audience, if you didn't like the speaker, you'd be like, this sucks. And you could just be like, right, or leave or get up and walk away. You know, here, it's just a whole different world. So don't assume you know what's happening in someone's window, but be aware that you now know things that other people don't know. And so you might sit down with somebody and they are taking notes, but you're going, text messaging again. Ugh. Or they start typing, which by the way, please be aware if you're a note taker and you're in a one-on-one conversation, you tend to not mute yourself. And if you start typing, that's really loud, right? So mute yourself, be aware, have softer keys, whatever it is. But yeah, so you really want to be aware of how they're doing things, like being a talking head, taking notes, surfing on the web, but they're not. They're trying to get something for you to send over to you. Don't judge them. In fact, don't even look at them. Change screens, look at something else, look in your webcam, right? It's all a lie. Their perception is your reality. All right, now actually let me stop right there. Is there any questions or scenarios on any of the stuff that we've been going over? Cool, all right. Oh yeah, Camille, go for it.
Oh, well, I still kind of lost at the idea of not looking at people's reactions, like especially for job interviews. And I know I misinterpret, like this one guy, he said that he had resting bitch face, and that's why he wasn't showing his camera. But then I said he looked like the Wizard of Oz in Emerald City. And then so he showed his camera, and then I was just thinking he's judging my answers and I'm saying the wrong thing, and he wasn't. And I only realized it when he started telling me, "You have really good answers. I really like your answers." And I couldn't tell. And so, yeah, I feel like, if you can't see people's reactions, then how do you know you're not totally going off on the wrong route?
Yeah, great question. So let's define first the one-on-one interactions like that versus the one-to-many. So right now, let's say that I wanted to start checking out the reactions. Well, first off, 75% of the room, I have no idea because you got black screens, right? So right away I'm going, oh my gosh, they don't love me. They don't like me. They're judging me. They're looking at me with like resting bitch face, right? Like I have no idea. I can't see it. For all I know, they're giving me the finger. The rest of you, like, Lisa, you're a smiler, so that's great. I get smiles, right? Other people are, they're like kind of a subtle nod, right? For all I know, you just have a rocking chair. I have no idea if you're actually in agreement with me. All of you could be like, yeah, this is so funny. You could be laughing your heads off, or you could be rolling your eyes. I just can't tell, right? And so in a group, rule of thumb is you are never going to benefit from trying to judge what's actually happening in all of the rooms, because that just takes time. It can take you out of flow. You can't possibly see everyone's screen, and a lot of them you can't see anyway because they're a black screen. But with the one-on-one, I completely agree. And that's where I really suggest cheating your position back and using the stacking windows. Now, if they don't use Zoom, I've actually had a meeting with Microsoft Teams to be like, hey, your windows need to like not just be only side by side. Here's why. But we'll see if that big company listens to little old me to make a change. But it's one of those things where you want to figure out what's going to be the best way for you to be able to, cheat that eye contact. Now, when I say look into your camera, though, I don't mean be like crazy, creepy stalker. Yeah. Oh, this is so awesome. I'm so excited for this job. You're just going to be like that crazy person, right? You're allowed to. Oh my gosh, yes. Like, I love that. That's so awesome. When you meet people, you're not like in their eyes the whole time. Your eyes can kind of bounce around, but be aware to have that picture or whatever that cue is going to be to put your eyes back up to the camera, especially when you're the one delivering the info. Well, actually, no, I'd say even more important when they're delivering the info. But if you cheat yourself backwards and you can place them under your thing, so even if, say, it's Google Hangout, even if it's Microsoft Teams, shrink that browser. Who cares if you can see yourself? Try to drag that window so that it's underneath your webcam. And now I can kind of look at their forehead-ish really safely, if not lower, and they're going to feel like I'm making that eye contact. Does that help a little bit with like a little bit of the cheating of position, and you don't have to look at them like the whole time?
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I mean, I do that. I don't know if you're asking me, but
well, in general, but you, because you asked the question, but yeah. So just always remember, how would I be coming across to them, right? Is really what you want to do. And again, don't put too much pressure. We're not looking for perfection. What we're looking for is consideration. Now, going back to if I'm taking notes, if I want to send them a website link, if all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get you this book. What are those things that you can do to make sure that their perception of how you're coming across in your window isn't making for a really significant reality that you now have to overcome, meaning you have to overcompensate to be like, no, I am caring. I'm not on my phone, I promise. Here's some of the things you can do. First thing, which is always going to be the biggest safe bet, is to over communicate. And really, it's like a one-liner. So if we're meeting and I'm meeting with Allie again, I'm like, okay, awesome, Allie, sweet. I'm just going to take some notes while we go. So how are you today? I'm gonna take some notes. I've just told her exactly what's happening. Oh my gosh, Allie, you just got me super excited. I got to share this link with you. Keep talking. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I just finished reading a book. I can still hear you. Keep going. I'm just gonna grab this. Oh yeah, this is so amazing. Over communicate. If you over communicate, you're never gonna go wrong. Okay. The second is recognizing what is in fact in your window. So if I'm going to take notes, even if I tell them I'm going to take notes, but then it's like an hour-long meeting or a half-hour interview, and after a while, I just start doing this for a long time, they're going to be like, did they slide their phone in there? Right? Yeah, they can't be taking that much notes. I'm not that interesting, right? And so because of that, I like to have my resting position be with my pen in my hand, because when your pen's in your hand, they know that it's in your hand. It hasn't been exchanged for anything else. So it's giving them that verbal cues or that visual cue. Miriam, is that a hand up for a question? Sweet, cool.
Hi, everyone. So one thing got my attention when it comes to the eye contact with the people who first time you met, especially when it comes from the different culture, like my culture. Wafa might be agree with that point, like Muslim ladies or Muslim gentlemen, they are not really comfortable to have a direct eye contact, is not a part of their culture. So sometimes considering the people believes in their culture help us to make that communication easier and build that trust in the different standard we getting as a skill. Just I wanted to share the point I cashed during talking with another people coming from the different culture. And that was my experience when I arrived, when people even in the street passing and try to be nice, having a small smile on their face was like, freak me out. Why they're laughing at me? Why they're sharing the smile with me?
I don't mean to smile,
They don't know me.
Yeah.
So being aware of those small differences could make a huge difference in the big picture of communication. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I've also had this comment where people who are on the spectrum, eye contact for them is just something that they don't want to do. It makes them feel uncomfortable too, right? So I think much like when you meet in person, if you're in a situation where, like, for example, Wafa, thank you so much. She was saying, can we put on closed captioning, for example? Knowing who could be or might be in your audience is always going to be something that will give you an advantage and help them to feel like included and to not offend. I had someone actually in just last week when I gave this presentation, Indigenous communities. We're going to talk on this next slide here about the mm-hms and how that in their culture is something that they do a lot of mm-hms. And we're going to talk very shortly about how sometimes on Zoom, because of the time delay, can actually come across really disruptive. What do you do, right? And so the first thing is, if you are in a situation where you know that that's how the other person that you'll be interacting with prefers to be communicated with, then just like in person, abide by those rules, right? That is always going to be what you want to do. If it's a group of people that you know are all going to be like that, then again, follow that rule of thumb. If it's going to be a highly diverse group though, then it's going to be difficult. One of the things that I do when I book these events is I ask who's going to be in the room. What are they looking for? What's important to them? So you can ask about your audience, but it's going to be hard to be able to please everybody. Just like if I was standing on a physical stage with, everyone in the crowd, it's going to be difficult for me to make eye contact with every single person, and half of them might not even want me to. So for that, I would still recommend going with looking into the webcam. If for no other reason than you just don't know who's in your crowd, right? But it's going to help you to stay focused and not be distracted with everything else on the screen. Looking in your camera is definitely a huge advantage to you, not just to them. If they are someone who prefers eye contact, it's going to be a great benefit. But for you, it's going to help you to stay on track. Now, obviously, if you know it's a whole group of people that are not going to want eye contact, put your sticky on the side of the wall, right? Like move it somewhere else, but you're never gonna win by looking at your screen. It's just gonna be so draining and taxing and overanalyzing and judging and all that kind of stuff. I see, and yeah, we've got a couple comments, yeah. Oh, the closed captioning didn't work for you. Oh, yeah, thank you for trying on that. If anyone requires closed captioning, please let me know and we can always get you the recording. And then that can have closed captioning that goes on it for you.
Wonderful. Leah, we also have Caleb who has a really great question.
Oh, yes. Did I miss that in here? Oh, yes.
What do you
Okay.
think of?
Hey, Leah, what do you think is the virtual meeting Zoom equivalent to reading the room to tailor the conversation. Yes. Asking the host is going to be the best. So for this one, I asked who's in the room. When it comes to reading the room though, like you're on the stage, they're like, give a keynote, and you're like, okay. And when you're in person, I mean, if everybody's head is down, if everybody is like talking, you're like, clearly nobody either cares about me, the topic, or I'm doing a horrible job. Like that's, you get that feedback really quickly. What is that same thing in the Zoom room? Well, let's go back to the in-person example. Let's say nobody is listening. What are your options? The show must go on, right? The only way to win over your audience is to do the best job that you can do and then assess it afterwards on the horrible survey results you're going to get afterwards, right? So in this situation, for example, maybe all of you had your screens on when you came on, and then halfway through, y'all went black. I'm like, everybody turned off their camera. Oh no, I don't know what's going on. For all I know, Zoom just had a huge major glitch and everyone's cameras went out at once. A hacker hacked into us. Like, you just don't know, right? But what are my options? I could get thrown off. I could lose my confidence, or I could just not even notice that it happened. I mean, let's be real. I'll notice because I do glance at the screen once in a while. But if I'm looking at my camera, the best thing that I can do is try to deliver the best information that I can, and then address it afterwards and go, not going to do that again. All right, I need to scrap everything I just did and rewrite this whole keynote, right? So reading the room is going to be difficult, but to be honest, it's actually difficult in person too. Say you see a whole bunch of people on their phone. I'm always on my phone in presentations. Why? Because I'm taking notes, or I'm looking up the websites of the things that they're referencing. If they're like, you should totally read this book, I'm like, Amazon. And I'm like, I'm doing it right away. And it's because they're a good speaker. So it's one of those things where you don't have a lot of options when you're in the moment. So don't worry about reading the room. It's just going to throw you off. Did that answer your question a little bit? And of course, that's just my opinion, Caleb. So other people have opinions. All right. Any other question? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks, Caleb. Anyone have any other questions before I jump into the last home stretch slide here? Oh, Wafa, yeah.
Yeah, Kazi has their hand up.
Perfect.
I'm not sure if you're seeing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Kazi.
Hey there. Okay, so I just wanted to, you're seeing these black screens and you're probably wondering why that is. So for me personally, like having this, camera on, it just puts me on the spot. And even though I'm not speaking, doing the presentation, it still wears me down. Like that's my personality, right? So that's the reason why I usually turn it off, because if I keep it on, it's more like I have to be,
On,
right?
Yeah.
And that
Everybody's looking at me.
exactly, and that contributes to the Zoom fatigue. So I just want to share that with you and just everyone else if they're wondering why it's black.
That's the thing, right? Like we just really need to empathize and realize that even when we see people in person, we think we can judge them and we know them, but we all know we're icebergs and you don't know half the things that are going on in people's lives. And you're being invited, like right now, Kazi, thank you for putting on your camera, because even though it's blurred, I'm still kind of getting a look into your space, right? And you're like, did I forget to put something away that I should have put away? Like there's just so many other considerations you got to go into. And like I said, it's a real thing. I have folded laundry while listening to someone's keynote. I have want to just put my feet up and listen with my eyes closed for a while. There's times where it's because I'm just so exhausted because I'm working extra hard, not working extra less. There's so many different reasons, and you'll just exhaust yourself trying to think of all of them. So thank you, Kazi, for letting me know. I appreciate the reassurance. Livia, did I pronounce your name right?
Julia.
Yeah.
Julia, yeah.
Oh, Julia.
Hi, Leah.
Hi.
Very good tips, thank you. And then, so I see that you move your hands a lot. I sometimes get that can come across as a little bit aggressive or too much, like overwhelming. So yeah, I just want to know what your thoughts are around that.
Great question. So the first thing that I'll preface this is be you. Okay, so don't try to be this orchestra person that I'm conducting like a symphony here. I talk with my hands, and that's because you'll also notice I'm standing, right? When you stand, your energy, like if you're going to be presenting, I have to carry this presentation without verbal feedback, without understanding if I'm doing a good job or bad job, and keeping your energy up is much easier when you're standing. When you're sitting, you can get too comfortable, right? And your energy can become lower. So I stand. That makes my hands do this though. Part of that though, and again, this will be split. Some people find it really aggressive. And a lot of that's because you can't actually see my hands at all times. You're just seeing things whip into the frame, and Zoom's, rendering is not like, it's blurry from the flash, right? And so that can be distracting. But rule of thumb is be you first, because that will help people to feel like they're getting to know you, and it'll help you again stay in flow with your content. If you're over analyzing, talk about nervous, at least you can only see me from here up. Little did you know, I'm wearing sweatpants and just super comfortable over here, right? But if I was on stage, I'm like, don't fidget with your hands, don't fidget with your hands. Okay, don't rock when you're talking, right? Like you're really having to focus on so many things. Here, at least I don't have to worry about my upper body. Some people may not like it. Other people though, they go, I can see her hands. I know she's fully engaged. I know that even when you're asking that question, you're going, her hands are always whipping around. Chances of her having anything else in her hand that she'd be distracting herself with is, highly low. There is something very real to knowing where someone's hands are and just feeling comfortable. So for me, this is how I talk. We're actually going to talk about something on the next slide about figuring out what your isms are, if you will, for helping people know, that you're the equivalent of the ahums, if you will. So we're going to talk about you figuring out what that is going to be for you. But for hands, there is no right answer. It may feel like a wrong answer with me having hands if it makes you uncomfortable, so apologies. But first and foremost, I want to make sure that I deliver the content to the best of my ability. And I talk with my hands when I do that. You'll want to give yourself a good perimeter around me if we ever meet in person, because I talk like this in person too. I don't want to hit you. Actually, I'll ask if there's any other questions in a moment, but I want to make sure I get to this last slide here. And that is increasing engagement. So with this situation we got going on here, it's different trying to stimulate engagement in this setting than in person. So the first thing is giving people space to respond. So if this were in person, I said, does anybody have any questions? Kelvin's hand could go up, right? And then everybody looks at him and goes, oh, thank goodness, I'm not the only one. And then everybody else's hands pop up, right? And so that can happen in a matter of seconds. But here is how you communicate with me in a setting like this. Does anybody have any questions? For you, maybe you want to verbally say something. Okay, yes, I have a question. I need to grab my mouse, find my little mouse doohickey. Where is it on the screen? Oh, it's in the top corner. Okay, perfect. Go down to the bottom corner, click mute. For some reason, it never unmutes the first click. So I got to do it twice. And then I got to go, hello, Leah, I have a question. Now, if you want to type a question, good Lord, now you've got to, where is my mouse? Find it on the screen. Go down there, put your cursor in the box and start typing. If I don't give you enough space, then by the time you find your little mouse doohickey on the screen and I go, any questions? No? All right, perfect. Let's move on. You're going to go, you didn't really want any questions. You liar. And then the next time I ask, I'm gonna be like, why is nobody asking questions? And it's because I'm not giving you the space to ask a question on this kind of technical medium. But silence can feel deadly. Does anybody have any questions? This is awkward. Somebody say something. Say something. Is anybody gonna say something? Right? And even I think it was Camille, when you asked your question, I started to go, okay. And you were like, oh, right at the same time. And it's like, it takes time for someone to be able to respond. So what can you do? Well, one of the things that we feel like we should do is just leave more space, right? But that's kind of like approaching a yellow light, not knowing how long it's been yellow. And you're like, do I have enough time to go through? Do I not have enough time? Like and so what I do, because I ride a motorcycle and the first things they teach you is look at the crosswalk. If it's a blinky hand or if it has a countdown, that tells you how much time is left on the yellow light, right? And so likewise, I want to give all of you a visual cue. Now, first rule of thumb is never ask a question in screen share mode or ask if there's any questions in screen share mode. Reason being is even though a lot of you have black screens, this is one thing I forgot to mention about the screen sharing. Let me throw this point in here really quick. Here's why you don't want to screen share your entire presentation. Have you ever gone to a seminar or a workshop or a party and you show up and there's only 3 people at the party? And you're like, oh, this sucks. Clearly nobody else thought this was going to be a really good seminar, right? And now I can't leave because they'll notice because there's only 3 of us here, right? That sucks. Here is what screen sharing is. There's only 4 people at the party. You got the host, the speaker, and then 3 people. And so when you screen share the whole time, people forget that other validation that we get just knowing that other people showed up at the party. So when you're in this mode, even though you don't have cameras on, they're like, whoa, look at all the names. Likewise, when you go, does anybody have any questions? Do it on this mode because it reminds them that they're not the only person in the mode or in the room. And they're also going to be analyzing. So for those who have something on, they're going, ooh, Ian shifted. Is that him typing? Miriam, I think she's looking for her mouse. Okay, and it's just those subtle cues the same way when somebody puts their hand up first in the room, they're like, I'm not the only one. Okay, perfect. And so those social cues are going to be key if you can get any, right? For all you know, everyone's got a black screen, but remind them there's more people in the room. Then you're going to say, does anybody have any questions? And give them a visual cue. And this is what mine has been. I don't know if anyone's picked up on it. So now here's what goes through your head potentially. I don't know if I have enough time to ask a question. Wait a minute, she looks distracted. What is she going for? She's grabbing her water. Oh, that'll take at least a few seconds. And it's kind of like the countdown of the crosswalk to let you know if you have time for the yellow light. What it also does is it makes you shut up. So now you're not feeling as awkward with the silence because you're like, nobody's responding. So give them a visual cue, cup of coffee, don't check your phone, not that kind of visual cue, but figure out something that you can do that's going to help them to go, oh, I have time, right? So give them that. Next one is God controls though. So right now, well, you'll notice there's been people whose mics have come on, come off, they can ask questions. I also set the rules of engagement. So that's another thing, set rules of engagement. I had the whole screen in the beginning saying, here you can chat, you can unmute yourself. Here are the ways that I would love for you to communicate. But for all I know, I accidentally put on the God controls. So the God controls mean that I can mute all of you and you can never unmute. And so I go, is there any questions? Man, this group sucks. They don't ask anything. Meanwhile, Sarah's going, I can't unmute. And in some cases, you can actually close off the chat and you can make it so that they can't even type in the chat. So make sure you don't have some sort of God controls on that's preventing them from engaging with you. These last couple ones, so let's see, bottle of water, unmute. Okay, yeah, so the mm-hms. So this is where you now need to figure out what is going to be your method for communicating with your audience to let them know that you're on the same page, that you're picking up what they're throwing down. So the bobblehead. Now, what I mean by that is, have you ever had a meeting, maybe with a friend, and you are having a great conversation? It's just like bouncing back and forth. They're talking and you're talking, and it's just super rhythmic, and you're like, this is amazing. And it's so fluid. That kind of conversation is impossible to have on Zoom. And the reason being is that there is a half-second time delay on our audio. Now, if you have really slow connection, it's like a 4-second delay. Those are really fun conversations. But here's what ends up happening, and I call it the Zoom dance. So I will say something, and let's see, who haven't I talked about for a while? Let's see, Diana. We're gonna have a conversation. So Diana's talking to me. Diana's like telling me this amazing story, and I can get a sense that her sentence is gonna come to an end. So I wanna throw in there a quick, and then, she should keep talking. The problem is by the time that her sentence ends, I say, on her end, technically, I've right when she's starting her next sentence. And then you get this really fun dance going on. Oh, sorry, did you have a question? No, I was just agreeing with you. Okay, you're sure? No question? No, I'm good. What was I saying? That is the Zoom dance. And it's because of this half-second delay audio. I did an interview with somebody where even in person, the amount of she gave me would have been disruptive. But doing it on Zoom, I couldn't hardly get a sentence through without an interrupting and throwing my flow off. So I had to politely say, I think I hear a dog in your background. I'm just going to mute you, right? But we need to recognize that if you're having one-on-one conversations, especially in an interview, you want to be able to let that person know, I hear you, without necessarily giving them the audible mhm. Because that way, sometimes you'll just start coming across really curt, really disruptive. So what you want to do is figure out what is your visual cue going to be. Now, we've all noted, I like my hands. I'm a facial person too, right? I'm like, yeah, I make big facial expressions. So figure out what feels most natural to you. But just remember that whatever it is can't be subtle, can't be mistaken, right? It can't be a subtle, because I have a rocking chair. People are like, is she just chilling in her rocking chair? Or like, is she like agreeing with me? I have no idea, right? Thumbs up works, but not if they're out of frame. So I'm a double, triple downer. I'm like, oh yeah, totally. But I'm doing it silently. And even if you tilt your head a little bit, it becomes a little bit more obvious that you're nodding your head or shaking your head or whatever the case is. So that's why I call it the bobblehead, because you want to exaggerate whatever that is. If you're an person, put yourself on mute, right? But you still want to give a visual to them. You don't just want to be like, and you're on mute and they can't hear you. You want to make sure that they're feeling like you're hearing them. All right, so those were the main points. I see that to here, didn't understand why not to screen share. It's all good. We've actually got this recorded, so you'll be able to watch this again. There's a whole bunch of reasons on not to screen share, but I see Wafa's put her screen on because I think we're hitting a time where we should probably peace out pretty quick.
No.
No?
Yeah, we have a couple of minutes if anyone has any questions or any last tips for sure.
For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, please feel welcome to
Ooh.
type those in. But what I will do is I will address the screen sharing one, because that's not a problem. So screen sharing, there's a couple of reasons that you don't want to screen share the whole time. Screen sharing is fine. Screen sharing is good, just not the whole time. Nobody needs to connect with the bullet points on your slide. They want to see you, right? And so that's why, again, the eye contact may or may not, depending on your audience, be really important because they want to look at you. They're looking at you to judge you based on your little box of a window. Now, if you screen share the whole time, one of the things that I had just mentioned there was how it seems like there's only 3 or 4 people at the party. So giving your audience that constant reminder that they're not the only ones in the room, because they're seeing more than just this for a window. But we've all been in a seminar or keynote, and even on this particular one, even though I'm kind of loud and obnoxious at times, you're going to zone out at some point, right? And you're going to be like, thinking about something. Maybe I said something that stimulated a memory. Maybe you're really tired. If we go from this bright screen or whatever color slides you have to a black screen and something significantly shifts, you could be distracted. You could be folding laundry. You could be doing your squats, but you're going, something just happened. Okay. All right. I'm going to continue whatever it was I was doing, but at least I've had to cue back in. It's woken me up. It's like someone standing on the stage and they see people glazing over. They could clap their hands. In this case, we're going to really do a shift of our screen. And when we look at our slideshows, more often than not, some of my slides have different colors, but most of them are just a white screen, a white screen. They're exactly the same, except the words have changed and nobody even notices, right? So give them something significant to kind of pull their focus back into what you're saying.
All right. I
Yeah.
believe we have 2 questions, 2 hands raised. And if I'm not mistaken, it's Tara first and then it's Diana. I could be wrong.
Sure. And to hear, did you have another one? I think you wrote in the
Yes,
screen sharing one.
please. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Maybe you have replied to this question in a different way, but I would like to ask now. You said it's a good idea to look through the camera, but I have practiced this before, but I didn't like it, so I didn't continue it because I couldn't have my own interaction. So it's a kind of two-way. I'm going to interact with you and you're going to interact with me. If I look into camera, I want to be able to see your gestures, right? Not talking about the judgment, just having a better type of interaction. So if
Would
I
you say
look
it's,
into
yeah, sorry, just for time's sake, because I know we've got to cut off
Yeah.
here. I just want to ask, so would you say that this is more often not in a one-on-one or a one-to-many, where you're talking to many people, or one-on-one?
one-on-one, please.
Yeah, so I completely agree. It helps when you can see a little bit what's going on, but that's where that first choice we still need to make in the beginning. Are you going to put your comfort over their comfort or the other way around? Because they want to make eye contact with you. right? And they can't do that if you're looking at them, right? It's a big, big difference. So if I make that choice, then you will want to retrain your brain to gain that validation and playful interaction with them in other ways than just visual. But with one-on-one, you have the advantage. Your camera, is it at the top of your laptop or the top of your screen? Yeah, so that's where, especially on Zoom, you can do this, but with any of the windows, try to place it so that their video, right, is right underneath your webcam. And now when you look at kind of their forehead, or like you can kind of see them, and plus you're easier to glance down, and like we do in regular conversation, we're not staring straight at somebody the whole time, right? Now you can kind of see them and you can interact with them. But really good to get in the habit of looking at the webcam, just so that for them, they feel more connected to you. Because if they're talking to you, right, if you were asking that question the whole time, I'm like this, it's just feeling a little bit more detached for you. You're going, what are you looking at? Are you seeing me or not seeing me? And so I want to make sure that there's no doubt in your mind. I'm looking at you. I'm focused and only hearing you right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And the stacking strategy, as you said, could be useful.
Yeah, and it
Thank
takes
you.
practice, right? It's a total change. Yeah. Diana.
I want to ask a summary question. Well, when you implement all those tools, how do you make sure not to pass the line from being a professional to being too casual? Because this is the feedback I get a lot, that I can be a bit too casual because I'm so enthusiastic like you when I present.
Fair. Well, there might be more than one reason on why they're getting that feeling. They just might be equating it to you being like this, right?
Yeah.
Now, my hope is that we can get to a point where people accept you for whether you're a hand talker or a, dancer, you sing when you talk, like whatever it is, right? But there are certain things where people have a certain expectation. The first thing that I would say is make sure that you know where you are on your screen. So may I make a comment on your screen right now?
Yes.
So right now I can only see your head, right?
Yeah.
You've got the talking head going on. So if you had your camera lower, they're going to feel like when a hand jumps into a screen, it's not weird because they can see more of your arms and your shoulders, right? And so understanding, if you need to, Zoom's great. You can record yourself practicing your keynotes and see how you feel, right? Go, man, I was zoning out in my own thing. I need to stop screen sharing the whole time, right? Oh, wow, I feel like I'm not really even connecting with myself. What are you looking at, Leah? Like, look at me, right? And so record yourself and see if you can see what they're seeing. But at the end of the day, I always recommend that you be yourself. But if these extra tools of understanding that you are in a box, their perception is your reality, if you can control just a little bit extra of that, that can really help you. But be yourself. If you're a hand talker, when people like don't use your hands, I'm like, I'm gonna have to sit on them. Like, I don't know what to do about that. I'm a hand talker, right? But I'd rather be my best self so that the content delivery and my enthusiasm is there instead of constantly, questioning and being really, really paranoid of myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, Wafa, where are we at?
We can take one more if anyone has a question. Your last chance if you do have a question. Otherwise, I have a question.
Sure.
And something that I struggle with. And it's a lot of the time when there's like a big meeting and you don't want to interrupt the other person and you don't know who's going to jump. So like someone might present a question like, how is everyone doing? And then everyone is silent because we don't have the physical cues that somebody is going to be talking. So do you have any, maybe coming closer to the camera might be one, but do you have any other tips?
Yeah. So depending on the group, so let's say it's a team, right? It's always the same team, or it's a class and you're always teaching a class as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a manager, whatever it is, set rules of engagement, right? So one of the things that I do on here is I put one of the very first slides of here's all the ways I would love for you to feel comfortable interacting with me. Some people hate chats because they're like, it's distracting, don't chat, right? And if that's the case, don't get mad at people when they chat if you don't tell them not to chat. But likewise, there's a company that I consulted for not that long ago, and they would do this thing where all of them would clap at the same time. And the idea was to get to the point where everyone was clapping at the same time. So Zoom mutes it out because Zoom can only take one audio at a time. If there's another company, jazz hands, because everybody's on mute, right? And they're like, ah. And so this was the applause, which is also, I believe, in sign language applause as well, right? So figure out what are your rules of engagement. What's something that if it's a consistent group or you're always in a teaching situation, put the rules of engagement up. And figure out what those, signals can be to demonstrate some sort of enthusiasm in the room. The thumbs up emojis. I teach a lot of young kids, and so they love the emojis, right?
Wonderful. That's great.
Wafa, we
Alright.
also do that one in my Toastmaster club. So if you say, how is everybody, you need to set the rules, as Leah say, just thumbs up, thumbs down. And when we are clapping, we are clapping, or we clap like that.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
That's wonderful. Well, Leah, it was such a pleasure. I always remember, every time you speak, I go back and I'm like, oh, I forgot that. So it's really, really great. And I think for a lot of the listeners, if you haven't found this important, you haven't been maybe in the corporate world, or you haven't been in groups that kind of demanded this type of knowledge. But when you are in the corporate world, you're going to understand how valuable this is. It is one of the essential things. Connecting with people and working in teams is how things get done. And building trust is just such an important ingredient. And Leah, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And one thing I just want to say too is now you know
Yeah.
these things, but remember that the rest of the world doesn't. So try not to judge them if they're not doing these things. They're giving you thumbs up under the table and stuff, but share this information, right? There's going to be a recording, so feel welcome to circulate it, but let people know, hey, we're about to do a presentation. You're representing me. Can you make sure you look in your Zoom camera, because it makes such a big difference, and here's why. Or when we present together, can we make sure we don't screen share the whole time, or whatever the case is.
Oh, that's wonderful. I will definitely be sharing this with our student association team, even though, some of them have listened to this session and benefited a lot. But yeah, if you are okay with everyone, sharing this session, that is amazing. And yeah, so thank you so much, Leah. It's such a
My
pleasure.
pleasure. And thanks to everyone for the comments in the chat. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And yeah, hope it helps.
Yeah. So we're gonna stay here.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna head out then.
All right.
All right.
Thank you,
Have a good night,
Leah.
everyone.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right. Sorry? Was somebody?
This is Miriam.
Yes, Miriam.
As she mentioned, this season was recorded. Where we can find the recorded video?
Yeah, that's a great question. So so all of our sessions that are recorded, everything that you need access to, the resource that you would want to access is the Learning Hub. So you should have access to the Learning Hub, and you should see Peak Leadership on there. And if you don't, just let me know, and we can make sure that you are added. And that covers one of the points that I was going to talk about. So that's great. So I'm just going to jump into my PowerPoint just to kind of mention a few things. But actually, yeah, I'll do that first, and then I'll take any questions. So have your questions ready if you have any. So that was our first webinar. So one of 3 mandatory events that you'll be attending. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you benefited from it. Oh, sorry, that was the last slide. I meant to start from beginning. All right, so that was the Learning Hub. So if you're not added and if you don't see it in your Learning Hub, just let us know. We'll be happy to figure out and troubleshoot with you what's going on. And then the second one is the Discord. So if you're not already on Discord, you should be. It is a mandatory part of the program. You will have to be on Discord. You have to be, with your team communicating, getting the 50 points, and that's going to be part of earning your leadership certificate. This term is all about working in teams, and you have been put in teams. And yeah, practice how you would be in a professional world, how you would communicate in a professional world. Really take this as a pilot into what you would do with your team and how to build trust within your team and build leadership and professionalism. And try to give feedback to your team members as well as receive feedback. And so that's such an important part. And it's gonna help you really learn and grow. All right, any questions? All good? Okay. All right, so in terms of team program events, you'll see here that we have today's session that finished, and then we have the one that's happening next week, and that's going to be an industry panel of industry professionals that you're going to be able to hear from as well as interact with in the breakout sessions. And so that's such a great way to build your network as well as learn from industry professionals. And there are, as you may have already known, that there's 3 options for your leadership sessions, for your leadership challenge. And you have been selected to attend one of those sessions. So some people will be attending on the 24th, some people will be attending on the 19th, and some people will be attending in March. And then our last session is on the 24th. So it's 3 program events. And then it's the leadership challenge. That's going to be also a virtual, you have to attend that virtually, as well as your weekly challenges that you'll have to complete in your teams. All right. Lisa, anything to add there?
No, you covered it. So each team is assigned a specific challenge date. So if you do end up having to switch dates, you will also have to switch teams as well.
Yeah, and we don't want that. I don't think it will be, I would really keep that to minimum unless you really need to I would try not to do it at this point because it's already, there's already teams and there's already points assigned to those teams. So it will be very much frowned upon at this point, because we did send out the dates and you had to select them. And if you haven't done that, I think at this point it's kind of closed. But yeah, Lisa and I will consider situations as they arise. All right.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
are challenges every week, as you say?
Yes.
Okay. Always you post it on Mondays to complete it by the next Monday. Is that correct?
So yeah. So the weekly challenges is each week it will be one challenge or 2, but most likely it's one challenge, and it will start on the day that we send it out. Typically, it is Mondays. Okay. Most frequently, it will be Mondays, and it is to be completed by the Sunday.
By the Sunday, because when I ask, you guys put 7 days, so 7 days, no business day, 7 days in total.
Yes.
So it was a little bit confusing because the challenge that we have, I'm sure everybody have the same, yes, to put the name and share the LinkedIn profile and post it in the smart sheet.
Yes.
So everybody is by the 14. 14 is Monday.
Yeah, for the first challenge. Go for it. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, for the first challenge, we gave you a little extra time because not everyone was in the Discord. Not everyone had found their team. So we just wanted to give you a little extra time to do it. Okay.
But so normally I like, if possible, I'm not sure why everybody thinks, but if we consistent, so to keep in mind, because not everybody would check the app, Discord. Sometimes we receive emails, sometimes not, but I'm not 100% there.
Yes.
So for me, I would like to know when it's going to open the challenge and when it's going to be completed. Like for example, I was thinking was going to be always on Monday. Why? Because I will have 7 or whatever, 6 days or 5 days to complete the challenge. It will be great if you guys, if possible, I know you guys are also busy, to post the challenge, you know, in a specific day, because otherwise I will have to check every time the Discord application. Yes.
So the thing
So-
is, for sure. The thing is, we do post other things on the Discord, so you should be checking them. Of course, we don't
Okay.
expect anyone to be checking it every day, but every 2 or 3 days, there's really important things that we post on there that we want you to be continuously checking. And we know that you're mostly on your phones, everyone, so it's not too, hopefully it's not too hard.
Okay.
But we do most likely so within the 7 days, hopefully you have checked it at least two times, and we will most likely stick to the challenges being posted on the Monday and ending on the Sunday. With the exception for the first one, we will keep it until the Monday so that everybody has access to Discord and all of that stuff. But most of the weekly challenges will be posted on the Monday and will end on the Sunday.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. And everybody, of course, has to participate, but at least one person have to submit it, yes, whatever challenge it is. Or everyone, because
So-
I'm not sure how it's going to
For
work.
the points, the way that the points work is every individual is keeping
Oh,
track of
okay.
their own points. So for example, for the team name, every individual would have to submit that to get their own individual 5 points. But then in terms of like the overall team prize winner, I saw a question earlier from Kayla. So the way that the winner is determined is by the highest average per person in the team. So that we're just doing that to even it out, because some teams have 5 people, some teams have 4 people. So the way that we're going to determine the winner at the end is the highest average per person for points.
Oh, okay, okay.
Alright.
So if I, for example, if some of my team works pretty hard and I'm very lazy, I will affect my team, yes, that member or the whole
Yeah.
team.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is a team. At the end of the day, when you're working in any company or in any organization or in the entire, in the world, you do win together and lose together.
Yes, that's right.
and,
Totally agree.
Yeah, so that's why we kind of really simulated a typical working situation. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I will push my team to work hard.
That's our goal is
Team 3, are you here? You hear me? Just kidding. Just kidding.
All right. So I'll jump into the different teams. So yeah, so if you are in team 1, 2, 3, or 14, your leadership challenge is next week on Saturday. If you're team 4, 5, 11, or 12, your leadership challenge is on the 24th. And if you are teams, let me get this right, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, yours is on the next month, on March 3rd. And then I wanted to give you a pointer here. On the 22nd and on the 23rd, it's our IXL conference. It's not a mandatory part of the program because it's not on the Thursday, but this is an essential part of growing to be a leader, and really listening to people who are experienced and have a lot of motivation and inspiration. And just like, we listened today, you gain a lot of insights. You might not be always reading books and things like that because you probably don't have time, but growing as a leader really takes some work and gaining a lot of knowledge. And that's what we try to do in the IXL conference. It's over 2 days, amazing speakers and a lot of prizes. And it's really going to be a fun event. And I just want to give you a little tip here. That weekly challenge, if you do attend IXL, that's going to be very, very helpful. I'll just keep it at that. But yeah, so it's so you can register now. We haven't really shared it. It's only been live for 2 days in secret because we do have specific number of tickets, but we wanted to tell peak leaders first before really announcing it and sharing it publicly, because it is part of the peak leadership program, but a little bit separate. So it's not required, but we really highly recommend it. we will have we're anticipating close to 100 industry professionals that will be there to network with peak leaders one-on-one. So really a great event to be at. And I'm just hearing my Discord in the background with some noises, and just, you know, with Leah's presentation today. I'm not sure if you're hearing it. Are you hearing it? No? Okay, all right. Okay, that's great to know, but it's been beeping. All right, so before I go to the next steps, I'm just gonna close my screen share. Unmute. All right, so so apply what we learned for sure. I can hear you too. I think I may have went unmute for a second. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so I'm back. Sorry about that. And so how did everyone enjoy Leah's presentation? Did you learn a lot? Was there a lot of was it engaging? We have a survey that we'd hope for you to fill out. But I do have a question. I wanted to just kind of assess how much you have learned from Leah's presentation. And I want to just kind of ask you a question to see who is paying attention to that. And the question is, so just type it in the chat really quickly if you know the answer. What was the cue that you should have to remember to look at your webcam? What was the cue? And I'm looking for something specific. Okay, Kazi, that was, I see that was the right answer. So I did have a prize. So Kazi, you answered first. So I have a prize for you. It will be a $30 Amazon or DoorDash gift card. And so just email me and I will be happy to send that over to you. Oh, so many people got that right. Okay, maybe that was easy. I'll pick something harder next time. All right, so how about some voice? No, sorry, Kazi. You really like your team, but sorry, it will be a $30 gift card. I hope you're happy with that. All right. So so in terms of next steps, next week we are all meeting, and it is going to be a industry panel. It's not going to be through Zoom. It's going to be through Hopin. So it's really a platform dedicated to, you know, virtual events like the one that we're hosting, like the panel. And so that's going to be then. And then you also have to submit your weekly challenge for this week, which is your LinkedIn as well as your team name. And then you'll start your next challenge, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge. The next one is going to be a little bit of a challenge for some of you. But yeah, take it on. All right, so that's all. We've wrapped it all up. Our next part is putting you into your teams and getting to meet your teams. And before I do that, does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it. Camille.
So I was just wondering, do you take attendance? I was here the whole time, but I was logged in under someone else's account at first.
Yeah, okay. We do take attendance at the very beginning and at the very end, and as well as in between sometimes. So yeah, so we'll make sure that, thank you for letting us know. If that happens again to anyone, just email us and let us know what happened, and then we'll make sure that you're marked present. All right, how to sign up for Excel? Yes, go for it.
This is Julia.
Go for it. Hello, Julia.
Okay. Quick question. Can you post in the app the link to register to the conference?
In Discord?
Yeah, can you do that?
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
perfect.
For
Thank you.
sure. I'll get so let me put that down.
It's there already.
It
was
is?
there.
Okay, maybe
Yes,
it's hidden. I will make sure that
yes.
it's visible.
Yes.
I
And then,
already registered. She sent it. Lisa sent it.
oh, you did, she did. Okay, perfect. Then that's great. All right. That's wonderful. Okay, so I see some messages here and I also saw a hand up. If you do have a question, please unmute, feel free. How do you sign up for Excel? You kind of got that. Thank you, Kazi. Wafa or Lisa, could you have some time in a breakout room, please? Could we have some time in a breakout room, please? Okay, you will have a time in your breakout room with your team, but if you mean for us to be in a breakout room, you can always connect with me right after the event. I'll be here afterwards. Okay, so any other questions? I think I saw Kevin's hand up, but maybe their question was already answered.
Can you hear me very well?
Hello.
Hi, I didn't join the class early enough because it's midnight from my end. It's 2 a.m. early morning, so I had difficulties joining, but I later joined. I hope my attendance will count.
And tell us where you're joining from.
Okay, I'm joining from Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining and taking the time. Me and Lisa will work something out. Give me $100, Tara. Okay, 100 points for Kevin. All right, so I cannot say the prize. It's really not a big prize. It's a small prize, but it's just a token of appreciation for doing the work and going the extra mile. So please don't expect something big, but yeah, do the work. Spill the tea. Okay. All right. So any other questions or anything, or should we jump into our teams? I think this is a good turn. Let's do it. Okay, let's jump into our teams. So what you'll see is the moment that we open the teams, there'll be rooms 1 to 13. And if you could just click on the room that your team is on, and then say join. And if you don't know what your team number is, you probably should know by now, but if you don't, we're here to help. So just stay back and we'll figure out what team you're in. The first thing that you would want to do in your teams is make sure that everybody in your teams is on Discord so that you're able to communicate after this meeting. Just in case someone is not on Discord, make sure to share the server link, get them on Discord. Another thing is just introduce what your program is, maybe finalize your team name, and just kind of talk in general. So I'm getting a message from Lisa. Some of Team 14 is here, so I included them in the room. Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. So they'll be room 1 to 14. All right.
How long is going to last, Wafa?
It will be. Great question, Diana. So it will be 15 minutes. You have an option to come back. So let's say your team kind of finishes it up. I know it's a long day. You've had probably work or classes all day. After 5-10 minutes, we don't have anything after this. So if you kind of just wrap it up for the night, you're welcome to just come back to the main room, let us know that you're all done, or just head out. That's totally fine. And I see another chat from Caleb. Someone from the MIA on Discord, how would you recommend for us to connect with them? Oh, okay. That's a great question. If they're not here today, just let us know and we'll take that into consideration. If they're not able to join within the next week, and they haven't been here today, they will be most likely removed from the program. So just let us know. And we're taking attendance, we're keeping track, but it's good to just kind of also let us know if that's happening. Yeah, it is sad, but we know that BCIT is hectic. And so if they're not in the mind space to be, really in the program, then that's totally fine. It's not an obligation on anyone. This is extracurricular. We're all here hoping to be having fun. So yeah, so not to put anyone under any stress. Okay, so we'll jump into the breakout rooms. So you should scroll to the very bottom of that window and click join next to your team number. let us know if you don't know your team number, and I'm very happy to figure out that for you.
Sorry, I don't see where to find my team.
Yeah, not a problem. Who am I speaking with?
It's Mari.
Mari.
I know I'm team 13. I just don't see anything to click.
Okay, so let's move Mari into the team.
Yeah, I can see if I can do it here.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
I also don't see how to join my team as well.
Sure. Is it Dan? Or-
Jose.
Jose,
And he's team 7.
team 7. Perfect.
I see it now. My window was too small. I extended my window. Now the breakout rooms popped up at the bottom. I can
Oh,
find it.
perfect. Not a problem at all. Is anyone else? We got Jose.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I have the same problems. Team 7, please.
Tanya?
Tahir or Tara.
Yeah. Tahira.
Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you.
Same here, team 6, Kelvin.
Kevin, perfect. Okay. Great, Lisa, you are super fast. Babalu and Ellie.
Hi, Ali, are you there? Hi, Daniel.
Hi. So I don't think there's anyone in my breakout or in room 5 right now. So it's just like an empty void right now.
Oh, no.
If I join, right? So
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
yeah, it's all right.
Um,
Yeah.
So team 5.
No one
Yes.
From my team is here.
You too, right, Diana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
No.
Were they here, Lisa, earlier?
Let me double check. Which team did you say you were again? Team 5?
Hello.
Hi, welcome.